Yeah, it's totally on. Thanks for coming out this morning on a Friday, a beautiful day like this, and listening to my take on freedom. Mark asked me to speak at Creative Mornings, and I said sure. And then he followed that up with, and you're going to be speaking about freedom. And I thought, there's got to be like a POW or someone that was like, has a real earnest take on freedom, not a guy like me. But I looked at that and thought, we're all bound by the rules of freedom or not, and I'm certainly no exception. So I wanted to have a look and explore not just the depths, but also the shallows of what freedom means, and see if I can apply that. And in doing that, I've learned to really appreciate what probably one of the most subjective words out there. So I'm going to begin, but thanks to Mark. Also, actually, one thing. There's raise your hand if it's your birthday today. Yeah, there it is. Happy birthday, Rachel. So I thought this quote was kind of interesting. That freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. I think that's a perfect way to generalize that term. Today, I'm just going to quickly break down what we're going to be talking about so that we have some expectations. We're going to be talking, I'm going to introduce myself, some time I spent in Africa, some time I spent in Central America, the launch of Go Volunteering, the spin out for Holidays for Humanity, and a little bit about tomorrow. So, a bit about me. I'm from East Van. I live just off of Commercial Drive and 7th. That's my home. That's where I like to shop, and that's where we work, and that's very much my community that I'm fiercely proud of. I'm a father to 2 young daughters. I haven't really told, it's out there, but I'm also a child sexual abuse survivor, and I've fought depression most of my life. So I started a business in my basement in East Van, and it grew quickly, and it was then, after about 6 months and great press, we were acquired by a large publicly traded company. I was acquired by a large publicly traded company. There wasn't anything else to it. So in that same year, I was graciously awarded a Business in Vancouver Top 40 Under 40, and in 2013, a BC Business Innovator of the Year. I write a travel column for the Vancouver Sun, the Huffington Post, and September monthly piece in Forbes. So I have a question for all of you, and it's an anecdote. It's a kind of a travel story. Has anyone been to Costa Rica before? Perfect. Has anyone been to La Fortuna before in San Carlos? Okay, we've got a few. Has anyone been to the Tabacon Hot Springs Resort? Okay. So these people know about, this is a gem. It's one of the top 100 resorts, small or mid-sized resorts and spas in the world. And I was doing site inspections in San Jose, and the general manager of a hotel I was staying at called the Hotel Presidente said, "Aaron, what are you doing this weekend?" I was like, "I have no plans. I've got some friends in Tamarindo. I might go surfing for a few days. That's all I wanted to do." And she said, "Why don't you go see our sister property up in La Fortuna, Tabacon?" And I thought, I Googled it, and this place is sparkling. So she made that reservation for me. I flew up and landed on a grass airstrip, and went to check in. So when I checked in, I had my bags and went to the reception, and said, "Aaron Smith, do you have a reservation for me?" And they said, they looked around. "No, sir, sorry, sir, there's nothing here for you." And so my question is, before I take this to the next stage, how many of you have disappointed someone in your life before? I imagine it should be everyone. If you don't have your hand up, it's bullshit. No, so everyone's disappointed someone before. How many of you have disappointed 300, 400 people at one time? So when I went to check, okay, Mark's up there, probably regularly. So I go to check in, and there's just nothing for me. So the manager comes out and says, sorry, Mr. Smith, there's nothing. And then he's hunting around. He's looking maybe in different systems. I don't know. I was like, I've flown this way. I don't know. This wasn't my intention. I don't really want to be in line. It's beautiful, but I had other plans. And so I finally, he says, I think we figured it out. So he walks me up to this room, and it's like room 2. Tabacon is a $600 a night hotel, and he opens these French doors in the penthouse in Tabacon, and I'm greeted by this glass table with this massive fruit basket with spiraling strawberries all to the top, and this is crazy. Thank you. This is perfect. And then I start investigating the room. It had a few bedrooms, amazing view, and then I started noticing something weird, like, well, there's a picture of Steven Tyler on the wall. Well, they weren't expecting Aaron Smith to show up. And so for 3 days, I'm walking around and you could tell the staff were they ironed their clothes, they're fired up. It's there's that fucking disappointment over there, and so it wasn't. That's a story of my time in Tabacon and disappointing hundreds of people just by being me. Bear with me one sec. I'm just getting a bit parched, and I've got a drink here. In 2009, I think I know that I found myself in a crossroads. I felt trapped, and I was doing a 9-to-5 job. I was every morning I'd start it with a bagel and peanut butter and banana, and that would be my day. And it was just kind of a rinse-repeat lifestyle. I had 3 weeks of holidays a year. Drove the same way to work every single day. Everything was normal and safe, and that was my life. I did everything that my parents hoped that I would do. I had a good paycheck, and we were about to have another child. So it was the American dream. But it wasn't working for me, and I wasn't satisfied. I know that at that point in time, that realization was that I was very confined in what I was doing, that I wasn't getting a chance to exercise my values or my potential. And there needed to be a way that I could blend things that I love, things in the travel space, with values of women's empowerment or environmental conservation. I'm a complicated guy. There's a lot of things I want to try and solve and be a part of. So what I did was I needed to be put in an environment where I could understand the change that I needed to be. I knew that I needed to change, but I didn't know how that change was going to manifest itself. So I needed to be put in a room or an area like a blank canvas and stare at it for a while before I brought the paint out. So that was my decision at that time, was to go back to school and take a commerce degree. I'd started in graphic design, hated it. I was a production designer, interned with Saatchi & Saatchi, and all I did was fetch coffee and try to have meetings before 10 a.m. so that the art director wasn't shit-faced. I'm sure a few of you, that happened every day. All they did was lunch. So at Royal Roads, which is a wonderful university, I took the commerce program, and Caleb's here, who I went to school with. We learned the business principles, but was a strong focus on triple bottom line and creating a business that has positive change. And that was an infectious philosophy for me to try and adopt. So part of my time in Royal Roads, we had a trip to Africa, and it was a microfinance experience. And this is what changed my life, being exposed to female entrepreneurs, predominantly, that were doing some amazing things, women with volumes of hope and gratitude and a commitment to lifting their families and their entire communities. And that was, and through that exposure, I wanted to, and it's a selfish thing, I get that, but I wanted to be able to contribute in that way and feel some kind of, charge my karma account somehow and feel good about that and have a positive legacy, maybe mitigate any need to buy a vet when I'm 55 and avoid some midlife crisis. So we saw a bunch of different operations on the ground, and I'll just talk about these because these are really important. And because in this, these people are finding a sense of freedom as well, and they're breaking off the shackles that are holding them back. We saw in Mombasa, we saw an organization that collected coconuts and took out the coconut meat, shredded it, dried it on a big oven, and then pressed it for coconut oil that they were selling into the cosmetics industry. An amazing business with huge scalable upside. I went to Zanzibar, and I saw people that were trying to scrape some money together so that they could buy chickens. Now, we've heard about buy someone a goat instead of taking Christmas presents. Absolutely, that's an amazing thing to do. And this is no different than that. These people wanted a couple $100, $300 so that they could buy 30, 40 chickens in various stages of sexual maturation so that they could raise chicks, they could sell eggs, they could have different things, not different channels of revenue, but certainly a different product line is essentially what they were trying to do. We met fashion designers about a quarter of the way up Kilimanjaro, I think, in Mwika, and they were trying to raise some money so that they could buy yards of fabric, not bits of fabric, yards of fabric so that they could mitigate their expenses, bulk purchasing, essentially. And, against all odds, and in every single instance, what was most impressive for these people was there wasn't this narcissistic driver of I need to accomplish something for me. It was all about, I want to provide a better life for my family, and I want to contribute to the community. When these women raised money, when their businesses hit scale and they became financially sustainable, they reloaned that money back into the community. There wasn't a selfish bone in these women's bodies. It was inspiring, absolutely. So when I got back from Africa, I felt inspired, no question, and fundamentally with the question, how can I live with hope and gratitude as well? But I only have a background in tourism. What can I offer the world in that space? So I thought that there could be a way, there needed to be a way that I can start blending these things together. This need, these opportunities to travel differently, but what would that look like? During this time, Caleb and I met some Rotarians in Mwika, and they were from New Zealand. They were there, they'd done fundraising and brought some people over from New Zealand, and they were building a marketplace, a concrete marketplace for the town of Mwika, so that all of the business owners and entrepreneurs had a forum that they could have essentially a farmer's market in, and on Saturdays and Wednesdays can sell all their wares. Watching them get dirty and build these things is, I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to be a part of that construction. I wanted to have a shovel in my hand. So it began. I came back from that and decided I'm going to put a plan together. Go Volunteering 1.0. This is it. And it's taken many shapes along the way. I've made countless mistakes. But this was the first one. I was going to lead, personally, get in a plane with a sign at the other end with everyone's name on, come meet me. We're going to grab shovels. We're going to make a massive difference one by one. Lead groups of 8 to 12 people. I'll pick the programs that we're going to participate in. They will be high touch and high impact, and I will have complete control of everything. Then I went to Central America. I came back from Africa with that plan, and then almost immediately I decided that this was what I was going to do. So I needed to do some market research, some primary market research. I needed to find projects, but I realized that Africa was going to be a ways away. I needed to think closer. That was my market will respond to things within a 3, 4, 5-hour flight difference. That's going to be market one, not connecting through Frankfurt and down to Nairobi. That will be a much harder sell than flights down to Costa Rica. So I took my dad, and we went down, and we built a house for a single mom and her few kids. And in this process, I realized that what I was about to do, the months I'd been traveling and doing feasibility studies, searching for investors, that I was running the wrong race. So that's my old man. So we got right into it. So the problem that I came to realize is that it was too limiting. I had bigger goals. I wanted to save beaches and save sea turtles, but I also wanted to empower women and build eco-orphanages. And like I said, I'm kind of a complicated thing. I couldn't do all of that if I was just taking one group of 8 to 12 people and doing one tour at one time. I have bigger aspirations than that. So I felt it was too limiting. And then something happened to me, and I remembered a lesson from university that was one of the things, if you're a small business owner or an entrepreneur, the difference is small business owners work in their business, entrepreneurs work on their business. So it's just a good kind of side note there. But one of the things that I learned to fear in that program was inventory. Inventory is a cost that sits on a shelf waiting for a buyer to come. In my case, I have inventory too. Those are the 8 to 12 available spots that I need to sell, or they don't go. What if I sold only 6 spots and didn't go? Do I refund that money? Do I charge more money? Because the project needs, there's hard costs, there's fixed costs that I have to cover. So that understanding became the realization that I'm getting locked in to something that has too much risk and not enough, personal, value in it for me. I wanted more. So we changed. Just as we were about to cross the finish line, I decided that we were running the wrong race, and I needed to retool. So Go Volunteering 2.0. We'd had websites, and I'd spent thousands of dollars. I'd asked my family to trust me. We'd flipped houses and painted things. And that time, and 10 years ago in Vancouver, when everyone was like putting a coat of paint on and like selling it for 70 grand, we rode that wave up. And I was like just dipping in left, right, and center. And it was, I could see the end. So how could I be involved in tourism that could solve as many of these problems that I had out there that I wanted to be a part of? Do it in a way that there's no inventory, but with reasonable and scalable revenue streams, that being travel services. So I set out to aggregate need, first of all. But aggregated need is one thing. It's easy to bring thousands of projects together in one hub by reaching out and saying, this is what my vision is, this is what I'm trying to do. I can solve a problem that you have. So we started building this, and our back end of Go Volunteering it works like a matchmaking tool. Things go into different boxes, and it allows the users who are on the site to find something that's perfect for them based on their own unique needs and interests. And another thing which really sunk in from my days in university was that I needed to create a community. There's less of a community around taking 8 or 10 or 12 people on one tour. I could have a community with thousands of people if we had big dreams. One of the things we are taught at Royal Roads was in commerce is if you can build a community, you can build a sales channel. If you can build a sales channel, you can build revenue. It all starts right there with building a community, and that's what we set out to do. So we'd been live for about 6 months. I went Go Volunteering 2.0 with the new filters and the new layout and no inventory. Went live on September 3rd, 2011. We were live for about 6 months. We'd been picked up, from a press perspective, we'd been picked up by ABC News, CNN did a nice piece. Arthur Frommer from Frommer's Travel Guide said, this could change everything. And it was wonderful. There was a lot of traffic on the site. I didn't know what to do with the traffic. It was almost uncontrolled growth, which is a problem all to itself for a while. But it worked. It worked because we got exposure from large travel operators that saw at the most rudimentary level, on the most basic side of things, that these people still needed, if they're going to Kenya or to Costa Rica, they still needed to get there, that they still needed travel insurance. And here's an opportunity for us to be proactive in this very infantile subsector of the travel space, that we could have some values and we can grow things responsibly from a large kind of corporate point of view. So we had some negotiations back and forth. I was entertaining JV, joint venture offers and acquisition offers. And then on February of 2012, about 6 months after going live is different from actually starting on the business. There was months of no paycheck, working 20 hours a day, up at 4 a.m. to do conference calls in South Africa or Cambodia. And so after all of that said and done, we were acquired. I sold the business and still run the business to Flight Centre. The Flight Centre is a publicly traded company based in Brisbane, Australia. They have a large head office, Canadian head office here in Vancouver, and I'm very much a part of that team. They've allowed me to continue to grow Go Volunteering in the spirit for which I originally set out. They've given a lot of free rein, and that's not something that you would tend to expect from a large corporation that takes something little that's fluid and basically says you mold it the way that with your values and the way it should be done. So I'm ever grateful for that experience. When I sold, I think when you sell your business, there's only 3 ways you can look at it. And they are 3 decisions that you have to make. They are, what's the best thing for the business? So we looked at that. And I sat down late nights with my wife and said, what is the best thing for well, the best thing for this business is that it has Flight Centre's resources behind it. I'm from commercial draw. I don't have the bankroll to try new things, to pilot programs, to try and do big marketing campaigns and knock this thing out of the park. And then you look at it and say, okay, so that's great. So Flight Centre is a better decision on that one. I think everyone would agree that there are more resources that Flight Centre can give to Go Volunteering than I could do on my own. Then the next one is, all right, but we also really care about the programs that are on the ground, our suppliers. What's the best thing for our suppliers? Those schools in Kenya or Tonio's art restoration project in Puglia. What's the best thing for Tonio? Well, the best thing is that he and all of the other partners have distribution through Flight Centre's channels. All of those shops, all of those staff, as a product line, this could spread out far quicker and create a greater impact than I ever could. Flight Centre's resources for the business, the distribution channels for our suppliers, and what's the best thing for my family? That's the third and final decision that I think anyone who's exiting has to concern themselves with. This was a really quick exit, so I don't know what the answer would be. With the absence of a crystal ball, could I have done all of these things on my own? Maybe, but I'll never know. But the one benefit is it eliminated the end of the financial risk for my family. That capital outlay that was just racing out the doors for legal fees and marketing costs and PR costs, it was tens of thousands of dollars. That ended when they acquired it. So from that point of view, I kind of look at it as, if I've got to score this thing out of 3, that it's a 2.5. So that was the understanding of the acquisition from my point of view. They might have a different one. So Go Volunteering 3.0. Now Flight Centre owns it, and they're investing in it, so it needs to, we had a good look at the business, and it needs to take a different shape yet again. It needs to step up its game. So there was rebranding. We got a new logo. We had new filters. Now Go Volunteering, and I'll show you on the next slide. I'll just race there right now. Got it? So on Go Volunteering, what I love about it, and I'm hoping this isn't coming across as too commercial. It's just this has been my life, and I'm just trying to convey that. It's not I'm not just trying to plug this thing. We have the functionality we've built is you can choose by what country you want to go to, what kind of theme you're interested in, or project stream you want to participate in. But one of the other things that we added after Flight Centre took it is skills, so that we could deliver the right people to the right projects. One of the things I learned when I was building the house with my dad in Costa Rica was on day 3 of that project, there were a couple Brits. And there's nothing to do with being generalizing against the UK. It was just these two guys were from the UK, and they stopped. They didn't come on day 3. And that was it. The project stalled. Now, I knew they weren't coming by the end of the day 2 because they were going, oh, my hands are blistered and it's hot and I've got bug bites, and it wasn't, I knew they were done. But the impact was that project stalled. And I know from that on the last day that the effort they were putting in was starting to wane. So now things weren't getting done at a high level and it's slowing down. So I realized that we've got to do a better job. Their expectations were not managed, and then whoever sent them there did a bad job managing, connecting the right people. I was going to fix that. That could not happen with Go Volunteering. So we put the skills section on there. One of the other things that we found with Flight Centre was that cost was becoming a barrier to participation. These programs have fees. I get asked all the time, why is there a cost to volunteering? And I understand that question. It's a valid question. But the reality is that these projects happen in 9 times out of 10 in communities that can't afford to host people. So there's a cost because you have costs. You have to eat. You need a place to stay. Someone's picking you up at the airport and making sure they're safe. They try to do fun things for you on the weekend and take you to local tours. You could be a drain on that community in Kenya or Cambodia if you don't cover yourself or contribute to the program. So we realized that. And of course, there's flight costs. So we built this tool here to remove cost as a barrier to participating in something that is impactful. We built a Kickstarter for the fundraising tool, and it's going pretty well. I think we've got a long way to go, but it allows people to set up a page, personalize it, tell their friends and family what they're trying to get up to, and and people can donate to that. There's a donor perk section like Indiegogo where you can say, I'm going to wash a car for $50, and it all adds up and is done and collects at the end of the day, and in an impactful way that can allow more people to join in. Now, but all said and done, and it's going well, but it isn't enough change. I think one of the things we've realized with Go Volunteering is if someone says, I want to go to Costa Rica, but I only have 2 weeks, and they're in June, do you have something, and I'm interested in sea turtle conservation, I must be on a beach. Like, well, sorry, sea turtles aren't nesting that time of the year. We had nothing for them. So that had to change. This person, we could still steer them into something better, but we don't have the inventory to do that. So what else can we do that gives them an opportunity to vote with their dollars and still be active in positive change? So we visualized a Whole Foods experience. I visualized the Whole Foods experience. They're probably sick of hearing it. When you shop at Whole Foods or any other organic grocery food store, watching how people interact with their merchandise is fascinating. When someone and especially comparatively to like a Safeway and certainly no offense to the Safeway chain, but when someone takes that box of cereal off the shelf at Whole Foods, they look at the cost, they look at the ingredients that are in that, but they also look at where that supply came from, where the box was made. Is the box recyclable? And it's not just eco-vanity. They actually care about the legacy of that purchase. Well, I think that consumer doesn't just stop at organic grocery food stores. Why can't we do it for the travel space? Who's doing that? Expedia's not doing that. Travelocity's not doing that. Flight Centre's not doing that, en masse. So is there room to offer an organic grocery food store equivalent for travelers. I don't know. We've been live since October. Things are getting better, but we've got a long way to go. But I hang my hat that I think there is, and that we can make a compelling case for it. So Holidays for Humanity is more of kind of creeps back more in the mainstream travel environment. We don't sell Vegas weekends. We don't sell trips to Disneyland. We've got eco resorts and hotels, yoga retreats. We've got volunteering abroad, which is, we take kind of our favorites from Go Volunteering. Cultural and culinary, those immersive experiences that are often quite freeing when you're in destination. And expeditions and tours. All of this aside, one of the things that I've come to realize in my journey throughout all of this is that, and for me, that freedom is the most subjective word out there, certainly one of them. But for me, and it could be different for everyone, I can see that if you like that 9-to-5 position and the safety and the stability and the comfort that comes from that lifestyle, that there could be freedom in that. There could be peace of mind in that. It wasn't for me. I like to explore, I like to take a leap, and I like to share my values. How many people, out of curiosity, have been to Victoria Falls? You know, have you done the water, like the pool at the edge of Victoria Falls? Is that one of the most freeing, like you are on the edge, you're millimeters away from going over. It's safe, but that's an amazingly free feeling. How many people have come back and landed in Canada and driven home back to their house and thought, oh, fuck, fantastic, I'm back in Canada, I feel free, this is great. Like, it is subjective. Like, you can have these experiences of freedom. And I've had so many of those, and that I'm immensely grateful. Just want to show a couple things here. I want you to notice that the tall guy in the very back, the one that's towering, that's me. I don't get that too often. These are, even if they're Mayan school kids who are, we built a sustainable orphanage using eco bricks. An eco brick is essentially a pop bottle that's stuffed with cashew wrappers and chip wrappers and cat put pack on it. And in places like Guatemala, and especially in the town of Tecpan, they don't have recycling, not an option. So they engage the schools to go on, recycling or reusing brigades is probably a better way. So they collect all of these bottles, and in the walls of this school, or in the walls of this orphanage, they stack the bottles side by side and then flip them over so the necks kind of tuck into one another. And it goes in between bamboo framing. And what they do is they've used garbage, essentially, to make the infrastructure of the walls, which they then stucco over, and you can't tell. They've cleaned up the streets of Tecpan. They're using materials. They're using it as a business, or sorry, as a building material, and they're incorporating volunteers to help lay that and hammer the bamboo, and of course invest in that program. So I was an amazing, one of my favorites for sure. I was in Calafia. This is a school in Calafia. I found this funny. See the kid that's right in the front, like way in the front? That's the equivalent of the dunce chair. Like, I used to get that, but I'd be sent to the back of the class. Like, no, Jimmy, you're front of the class right here. So that was, but what we did in this instance, we put a roof and we brought a rainwater catchment system so the kids at school had fresh water to drink. But those are the conditions. And I've seen worse schools than that, far worse than that. But that's indicative of what you find in places like rural Mexico. Oddly enough, they can only do school first thing in the morning, and at the end of the day, for obvious reasons, the kids would just bake in there. I've done sea turtle conservation programs in El Hawaii, in Guatemala, which is just north of the El Salvadorian border. We patrolled the beaches at night, collected the eggs, brought them back to the hatchery. There's a poaching problem, a really bad poaching problem going on in Guatemala right now. and it's decimating. Actually, there's no more leatherbacks. The migratory pattern into Guatemala, it's over. So there's still leatherbacks that come to Costa Rica and other places, but in Guatemala, they've basically poached them to extinction in that part of the world. The eggs are collected, sold back to China, cracked into orange juice, and drank as a form of Viagra. That's their use. So we've collected turtle eggs and brought them back to the hatchery and done some amazing things in that space. Almost done here, guys, but I have a question for you. And again, it's just on the subjectivity of the word freedom. If we took these two Maasai men and dropped them safely onto Georgia and Granville at 8:45 a.m. on a Monday morning, as we're queuing up to go to our desk jobs, do you think they would think we're free? So what is freedom for one is merely confinement for another. Thank you very much.
I'm going to start, and then I want you guys to start thinking about really good questions. But I want to ask you a question. Has there ever been a moment on one of your trips where you had like a holy shit moment? It doesn't have to relate to creativity or freedom, but like when you just kind of went, what?
Yeah, I've had, lots. I was at the Belizean Tourism Board hosted a FAM, which is short for a familiarization trip. And so there was about 6 or 7 of us that went down, and they take you from place to place, all the sites. They want you to go back to your country and communicate that Belize is a wonderful destination and become a brand advocate. So they often show everything that's unique. Well, in every instance, they show everything that's unique to that country, and you sample the local food and the local drinks, and you dance late into the night. And I remember it was day 3, and it was our big dinner out. So they started the night with cashew wine. Anyone had cashew wine from Belize? It's horrible, horrible. So everyone had a little mini bottles of cashew wine. I got stuck right into it. And that evolved into Viper rum. Who's had Viper rum in Belize? Viper rum is when you put a poisonous snake in a bottle, fill the bottle up with rum, cork it, let it sit. The snake was alive when it went in the bottle. Let it sit 4, 6, 7 months, bring it back out, serve it as shooters, and see how the night goes. It was like something right out of Hangover. I woke up in some local guy's house with a pit bull drooling over me in my boxer shorts. There's so much, like, I look at the movie The Hangover and think, but that's totally plausible. Like, it's all seems logical. Of course that happens. Yeah, I've had, there's an oh shit moment for you.
Sorry, hi, me. Yes.
Yeah.
Who has a question for our speaker? Right here.
I'd like to ask you a nitty-gritty logistical issue. I know you mentioned costs of, I'm a volunteer, why do I have to pay to attend these things? And I experienced from the other side how horrible it is to have to deal with all of these people who come and expect 100 things, all the logistics taken care of, et cetera, et cetera. In your programs, who deals with that at the specific institution level? For instance, at the organization, do you have someone that you hire specifically to handle logistics in a country, or does the organization expect it to handle it?
We don't run our own tours. That whole thing that terrified me about leading tours on the ground and having to have staff in destination isn't something. We're an aggregator. Think of it like Expedia. They don't run any hotels, but they manage your expectations and connect you through to that hotel purchase. Well, we find programs that we believe are strong in destination, that are committed to doing something positive. We get to know those programs, and when someone inquires or calls or however they reach out to us, we help navigate all of those choices that they have. If we get people calling all the time and say, I want to go to Costa Rica, but I don't even know where to begin. So we help kind of qualify them for the right programs. And that when someone lands in destination, that's not us. We've managed their expectations well, I hope, but someone's there with a sign with their name on it, and that's it. Like they're on the program's watch. We can't work with 4,000 programs. We don't have the resources for that. Does that answer your question?
Not really.
Yeah, you're good?
Sorry, you can catch up later.
We talked a little bit about continuity. So you go somewhere, you go there for say 3 weeks, even a month, and you build something and it's awesome, and then you leave. And then it's not just continuity in say making that place better, say a school or whatever, but continuity of usage and being fit for purpose for that area. How do you deal with that with Go Volunteering? Because you've got people coming in and out all of the time.
Again, that starts on the program level. We get testimonials from past volunteers and have a good look. We run their, if they're not-for-profit on the ground, we run their registration number through GuideStar or Charity Navigator, pulls out the board of directors, their financials, how long they've been in operation. And then we pick programs that are respectful of that continuity of their operational legacy. So for us, we do that by kind of the vetting that goes on ahead of things. Some programs, there's one that I'm thinking of right now in Nicaragua, where participants go to off-grid communities that rely on diesel as a source of electricity. So they go into a small village and they install solar panels on that school. Once that's done, that program's over. It's in the hands of the community. Hopefully an aid has been helpful there. They don't have to buy diesel, of course, any longer, and the environmental footprint's better. But there's no continuity in that particular project. That one starts. But that program that does that will go to other communities. So there will be a kind of operational continuity within that space. I feel like I didn't answer your question there either. Sorry, Answer what you want them to ask.
I had a question regarding the vetting process that you go through.
Right.
How much vetting do you actually do? For example, if I said, I want to go build a school in Nicaragua, or help build a school in Nicaragua, do you go with my LinkedIn profile? Do I send in a resume to show that I actually have the skills to contribute to this program?
Yeah, there's an application form. Even when you send your very first inquiry off of anything, it says, what interests you about this program, and why will you find this rewarding? I think I might be getting it wrong, but there's at the most instant levels, we're getting stuff out of you and saying, is this just to make your resume look good? Are you doing it for, what are your motivations for choosing that? And then there's an application form that goes to, I think, just about every single project where they're the ones that choose if you're the right fit or not. So we connect the dots, but that choice, that vetting on you is done by the organization. We do all of our homework to make sure that this is a reputable organization that's been around a long time, that has the right intentions and the right goals, but that connection is done on the program level. Yes?
I'm just wondering where do you want this to go? What's your vision for what would if this worked really well, what would the outcome be? Obviously helping other people, helping people in poverty, uplifting women, creating more equality. What's success in this? I guess both in the business and just in your own personal drive.
I think that the business continues to be a going concern. I think success is that when we reach a stage in North America that people have, over the course of their life, done one or two of these. In the UK or Australia, they take gap year holidays, and that's just a rite of passage. Well, I'd love to see this become a rite of passage. Because I think not only can we do some positive things in destination, but perhaps some of the biggest change, it comes from when travelers come back on the ground and see things through a different lens. That they know that things are not better here or better there or worse. That they're just different. That they become more sensitive to the challenges that are out there. So I think that's my biggest goal, is that this becomes a social norm.
Hi, Aaron. Just wondering how you measure impact, or if there's any way of measuring the impact of these initiatives, simply because a lot of, I guess, the problems that volunteerism tries to address are systemic issues that maybe in a short trip people don't necessarily see what their impact is. So if maybe there's a way to build in a collective measurement of impact so that when you go on a trip, you see that eventually this has to do with, I guess, the legacy question that was asked. I'm just kind of curious how you measure impact.
That's a difficult thing to do with such vast number of projects. It's very different to build schools than to collect sea turtle eggs and measure, what are the impacts of this versus that. But that does happen on the program level when you head down and you're part of their communication channel. So if you do go down to Guatemala and Save Turtles would work with a volunteer, I won't say you're on their e-newsletter, but they're following up with you and showing you regularly, how's the development at the hatchery and how many turtles have been saved. You get progress reports from the school or from Nicaragua if solar panels are going up. There is absolutely some negativity around volunteerism, and I don't ever hide from that. There are some programs that deserve the negativity and have tarnished it for everyone. In Cambodia, as a perfect example, orphanages are a source of tourism. Now, orphanage administrators go into local villages in the hill tribes and make a promise to a mom who has 6 kids and says, "I'll give your child here the best possible life. Here's $250. I'm going to teach your daughter English," and they take the cutest one. So then they go into the villages in Siem Reap and bicycle through, and they go to pubs and knock on and say, "Come and see my orphanage." People show up, and to a well-timed rendition of heads, shoulders, knees, and toes by the most adorable little Cambodian children. And then they walk you through and see this room and look at our kitchen, and it's beautiful. If only we had $500 more, we could fix this bathroom. That bathroom will never get fixed. That's the call to action. So I'm very aware that happens. However, we have to compartmentalize where change happens. It's an amazing thing for people to go to the developing world and be immersed in that culture and sensitive. I believe that is a very important thing to learn if we're going to be part of a sensitive global culture. So the challenge then is this operationally the right thing to do in these villages? I suggest that there's some programs, as I've mentioned, that have a long way to go. We don't deal with those programs. However, I still think that the net benefit, I sound like Stephen Harper here a little bit, the net benefit to those communities is stronger. Geez. Having volunteers or travelers go to communities that don't often see tourists, well, that leaves a positive economic legacy in that town. They need food, they need accommodation, there's services, you're creating employment for being there. So there is a strong economic legacy. And I think that if we can stay the course and be mindful of the impacts that we're trying to create, that we can offer positive change in a short-term setting. Just because you're in Nicaragua for 2 weeks doesn't mean that program stops when you end. In come another people or another group of travelers. The project manager's the same, the work crew's the same, but the continuity there rolls from group to group to group until it's done, and then on to the next community. So those are the kind of the nuances in this space.
Last one. You spoke about the 9 to 5 bread and kind of making a change and looking at a blank canvas, not really knowing what you were going to do. Can you speak about the most terrifying and also rewarding part of that?
The most terrifying piece was hearing my friends and family as I planned the sow, because they thought I was crazy. You're going to do what? You're going to try and... Yeah, there was so much negativity, and I love my family and friends dearly, but my father's a conservative lobbyist in Ottawa. My mom lives on Vancouver as this reclusive environmentalist painter. It's the weirdest mix of growing up. But my dad couldn't understand why anyone would ever want to do this. Like, why would you take, I've earned my holidays, and I pay taxes, I'm just gonna go to,
Now you sound like Stephen Harper.
do I? Oh, twice. I think that the greatest fear came from everyone else and considering that they were right. Like, is this just a lofty dream? Am I out to lunch? And then proving them wrong was something that I would think about the things that were told to me, and not in a malicious way, but I used it as motivation every morning when I woke up. You know, things people would say like, this isn't gonna last 2 months. You've done all of these amazing things with, you know, growing your nest egg, and you're ready to blow it all out the door. I mean, there's fear in that, you know, understanding my risk threshold, that certainly kept me up at night. But it was the negativity that was the hardest thing. And I think anyone who starts a business, or especially if you're an artist or a writer or something that has, you know, a social stigma of, you know, borderline unemployment, that is a really hard thing to hear from people. You need a strong support network, and I don't think I won't say I didn't have that, but it could have been stronger.
Thank you very much, Aaron. A round of applause for Aaron's speech.